Everyone turned in unison towards the elder who interrupted the old madam. The moment Yi Wanwan, who had been watching on the sidelines, saw the elder dressed in a tang suit speak up, the space between her brows twitched. "What is it?" The old madam frowned. The elder dressed in the tang suit made a subtle, cold glance in Su Yi's direction, then said to the old madam, "Sister-in-law, I received some information lately, but since I haven't looked into and verified it, I didn't want to mention it. But now that our master has been attacked, I added 2 and 2 together, and to my surprise, something wasn't right. This is a serious case, and I personally am unable to judge, so I hope sister-in-law and everyone here will take a look into this matter together." Watching this scene in front of her, Yi Wanwan's expression changed. It was exactly the same as she had expected. Things were unfolding just the way they had in the past. The person speaking was the true mastermind, Si Han's fourth great-uncle, Si Mingli. Si Han's grandfather had 3 younger brothers, the white-bearded elder, Si Mingrong, Si Mingshao, who had already passed away, and this mastermind, Si Mingli. Si Mingli occupied a high position and was powerful. His status was comparable to Si Mingrong. Considering Yi Wanwan's current abilities, even though she knew this would happen, she was unable to stop it. Furthermore, Si Mingli still had an extremely powerful backer, and Yi Wanwan still didn't know who that person was to this day. In her previous life, not only did the Si family find out about Si Mingli, but they also found out that Si Mingli had been colluding with a mysterious person all these years. It was a pity that when Yi Wanwan got a divorce and left the Si family, the greatest mastermind still hadn't been brought to light. In order to find the culprit, even the seriously ill old madam encountered violent treachery. Watching Su Yi, who still had no clue about what was about to happen and who was sincerely hoping to nab the culprit for his master, Yi Wanwan clenched her fists tightly as she thought about his tragic end in her past life. Shortly after, the brown portfolio Si Mingli brought out made its way to the old madam and all the elders. After looking at it, everyone's faces turned unusually dark. The white-bearded elder, Si Mingrong, had his face completely shrouded in darkness. After he placed the thick stack of documents down, he shot daggers at Su Yi, who was standing in the corner, and bellowed, "Su Yi!" Su Yi noticed the strange looks from the elders and furrowed his brows slightly, then he took a step forward. "Here!" Si Mingrong slammed the table with a loud bang. "Su, how dare you? The Si family has never let you down, yet you betrayed us, conspiring with the murderous blood gang to assassinate our master." "What? Betray master, conspired with the murderous blood gang?" Su Yi was in utter shock. After some time, he hastily said, "Please check your facts carefully, Elder Rong. How could I possibly betray the Si family and assassinate our master? It's impossible that I could even have any connections with the murderous blood gang." You won't give up until you see the coffin, huh?" Si Mingrong tossed the documents at Su Yi's face. "You actually said you have no connections with the murderous blood gang? Then how do you explain all this?" Yi Wanwan followed Su Yi's gaze, and certainly, she saw those were pieces of evidence of Su Yi secretly colluding with the members of the murderous blood gang. The evidence was irrefutable. The trickiest part was that all these pieces of evidence weren't forged, they were all real. Su Yi did, in fact, communicate with members of the murderous blood gang. This point was undeniable. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Si Mingli was very sure that this evidence alone was enough to condemn Su. As long as Su Yi dragged things out and the truth came to light, they would be off the hook. Su Yi had been the most trusted person at Si Han's side. There were many things Si Han entrusted to him to deal with. If it wasn't for Su Yi sharing Si Han's burden all these years, Si Han's health would have been much worse. As a matter of fact, that member of the murderous blood gang whom Su Yi contacted before wasn't someone from the gang at all. It was a mole Su Yi secretly planted inside the murderous blood gang who was actually one of their own people. But before they could get any useful information, that person died in an accident during one of their missions. Who knew that the real mastermind would collect all the evidence of Su Yi contacting that mole, use him as a scapegoat, and accuse him of colluding with someone from the murderous blood gang. Now that the mole was dead, he couldn't possibly testify for Sui. Due to those people who brought out this incident at such a sensitive time, Sui would never be able to explain himself even if he had 10 mouths. As expected, after seeing all the evidence, Su Yi's expression changed. These are... Si Ming Rong glared at him. You dare to say all this isn't real? You didn't secretly contact that person? I already checked all the evidence over and over. They definitely weren't fabricated, Si Mingli said confidently. Su Yi's forehead was dripping with cold sweat. He felt as if he was wrapped in a giant net. Su Yi forced himself to maintain his composure before speaking up. All this evidence is real. I did contact this person before, but I only contacted him because he was a mole I planted in the murderous blood gang. He's one of us, and the reason why I was in contact with him was to gather intelligence. Si Mingli sneered. TSK, a mole? One of our own? Then where's the intel you gathered, huh? Why didn't you receive any news about our master's attempted assassination this time? Su Yi immediately responded, that mole died a month ago. Si Mingli nodded in understanding. So you're saying we can only rely on your words since the dead can't testify, right? Su Yi replied anxiously, but everything I said was the truth. Si Mingli let out a low chuckle. I see. Then let me ask you, this project was kept completely under wraps. Aside from our internal people, outsiders all thought the master went for an ordinary business trip, so this time, why did the murderous blood gang choose this precise moment to act? The murderous blood gang was able to seal off the entire country B, meaning they had been preparing this for at least a month. This means they already found out about the master's plans a month ago, yet coincidentally, the last time you contacted that person from the murderous blood gang was also a month ago. The project this time was indeed kept under wraps, but it took 3 entire years to prepare for it and it went through several hands. There were many opportunities for something to go wrong. Then let me ask you again, when the master was surrounded by the murderous blood gang, our men split in 3 directions to escape, so how was the murderous blood gang able to locate our master instantly? At that time, Country B was completely under the control of the murderous blood gang, so splitting our men in 3 directions was our last resort. Regardless of the number of splits we had, our actions were all under the nose of the murderous blood gang. The reason why they didn't kill us immediately was simply because they were toying with us like a game of cat and mouse. Si Mingli scoffed. Fantastic, fantastic. What a perfect excuse. You contacted a member of the murderous blood gang because he was a mole and you couldn't get the person to testify because he's dead. You said the leaking of the itinerary had nothing to do with you and the reason why the escape route was in their hands was because the murderous blood gang had arms and eyes all over the country. Special Assistant Su's really scheming. What good moves. No wonder he was able to deceive the master, old madam, and all of us all these years. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. After he said his piece, Si Mingli snapped. He raised the teacup next to him and tossed it at Su. An ear-piercing clang resounded. The teacup fell to the ground and broke into pieces. Su Yi's forehead was bleeding nonstop. Lu Ying and 11 stood there in a daze looking at the evidence, completely dumbfounded. The previous 2 accusations were indeed questionable, but Su Yi secretly contacting the murderous blood gang was an irrefutable fact. Su, how is this possible? At this moment, all the elders gave Su Yi cold and detached looks. Su Yi, with all this conclusive evidence here, how are you still trying to smooth-talk your way out of this? The mole, who died, was obviously killed by you to silence him. Why did you betray the Si family and who's your master behind the scenes? What's your motive? You're truly ungrateful. If it wasn't for the late master, your entire family would have already been killed by your enemies and buried in the deep sea. You actually dared to bite the hand that fed you. You're worse than a beast. I think the entire Su family has been bribed. The blood on Su Yi's head trickled along his brow bone and dripped into his eyes like tears of blood. Facing each and every one of their cold faces and dagger-like glares, he slowly lifted his blood-red eyes and said, making sure to enunciate every single word, I did not betray my master. Every single word I said just now was the truth. My father was with the late master his whole life, and I've been by the master's side since I was little. The entire Su family is completely loyal to master. Today, if I, Su-yi, spoke a single lie, I'll go to hell, degenerate into an animal and be barred from reincarnating. Si Mingli scoffed. If one could prove his innocence just by swearing, I'm afraid there wouldn't be any criminals in this world. Si Mingrong's face was frozen as he pondered for a long time. Let's not talk about the other issues. This evidence is indeed irrefutable. Do you have anything to prove that this person you contacted in secret was a mole like you mentioned? Only the mole himself can prove my innocence, and now that the mole's dead, there's nothing I can do. Seems like our investigation ends here. Si Mingli turned to the old madam. Sister-in-law, things are very clear now, so please deal out a punishment for this traitor. The old madam, who had kept silent all this time, looked unusually somber and had been sizing Su-yi up several times. The corners of Si Mingli's lip curved upwards, revealing a bone-chilling smile. This time, Su-yi was doomed for sure. Not just Su-yi alone, but the entire Su family would be dragged into this. Old madam! At this moment, an elderly man in his 60s dressed in black pushed the door open and entered. He looked anxiously towards the silent old madam. Hearing this, everyone's eyes turned to focus on that man. This elderly man's name was Su Chang-kun. He was Su-yi's father and had fought for the Si family for 30 full years. Today, he was also one of the oldest in the Si family. My son, Su-yi, would never do something devoid of conscience like colluding with the enemy. I hope old madam will stand for justice. Su Chang-kun's body trembled slightly. As one of the oldest in the Si family, he knew that if Su-yi was proven guilty, there was no doubt he would die. Even if the master of the Si family, Si-han, regained consciousness right now, it would all be hopeless if there was no evidence to prove Su-yi's innocence. The old madam shut her eyes slightly. Her face was glacial and she didn't bother responding to Su Chang-kun. After all, he was Su-yi's father, so obviously he would speak up for him. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. H&E. Si Mingrong scoffed coldly. Su Chang-kun, you still dare to speak up for Su-yi at this time. The Su family will not be able to avoid responsibility for this whole incident. Su Chang-kun's face turned red as he retaliated immediately. How could I not know my own son? Do you? Si Mingrong flung the brown portfolio over to Su Chang-kun's feet. Su Chang-kun quickly bent over, picked up the document and flipped through it carefully. With each flip of the page, Su Chang-kun's face turned darker and darker. When he finished reading everything in the file, his face was completely ashen. He stumbled a few steps back and looked at Su-yi in disbelief. Su Chang-kun's resolute heart finally started to waver. It didn't matter whether Su-yi was wronged, the information in this file couldn't be wrong. Even if Si-han spoke up for Su-yi personally, it would be of no use at all. Father, I was wronged, I really didn't. I didn't. Looking at his own father's doubtful and heartbroken expression, Su-yi entered into deep despair. My own father has already... Su Chang-kun shook his head as a bitter smile spread across his face. He mocked himself as he turned to the old madam. It's my fault. I, Su Chang-kun, didn't teach my son well. I let my wife down, I let the master down, and all the more, I let the Si family down. How the old madam wants to punish Su-yi and the Su family, I will have no objections. The moment Su Chang-kun said his piece, he looked as if he had aged over 10 years. He retreated and didn't speak anymore. Su-yi, do you plead guilty? The white-bearded elder, Si Mingrong, pointed coldly at Su-yi and roared. I didn't do it, I really didn't do it at all. Su-yi shook his head. He would never confess to a crime he didn't commit. At this moment, the gaze of the old madam was filled with extreme disappointment and wrath as she looked at Su. Things had progressed to this point, yet he still didn't want to plead guilty. Truly, as the saying went, to guard against 1,000 thieves is easier than guarding against one at home. Su-yi, I've never treated the Su family badly. You've been by little Nineh's side for so many years, and I've also always placed the utmost trust in you, handing little Ninth over to your care. I never expected that I personally placed a deadly knife by little Nineh's side. You're really such a great disappointment. What did those people offer you that you could throw your conscience away? The light in the old madam's eyes was flickering. Su-yi clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Old madam, what I said was the truth. My father was by the late master's side for over 30 years. He's been loyal and true, so how could I be so daring to stain my father's name and loyalty? Si Mingli used the teacup to push some tea leaves aside. His gaze swept across Su-yi lightly as if he was looking at a beast on his deathbed who was still struggling for life. TSK, everyone said Special Assistant Su was smooth and slick with people, two-faced, making everyone so happy that even the master didn't have his guard up against you. It has truly been an eye-opener today. It's already escalated to this point, yet you can still say all those things without blinking. If it wasn't for the irrefutable evidence, even I, myself, would be moved by you. Si Mingli continued reminding the old madam, Su-yi's been by the master's side for so many years, so how much classified information does he know? The masters encountered many attempted assassinations before, but just how many of them were orchestrated by Su-yi behind the scenes? Thinking about them gives me the shudders. When the old madam heard what Si Mingli said, her face turned frighteningly icy. Su-yi, if you have anything to say, save it for the prosecutors. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Si Mingrong said in a deep voice with a rigid expression, take him down, torture and question him, lock up the Su family and do not let a single one of them off. This issue had already been settled. Su-yi was going to meet an ending exactly the same as in her past life. In her past life, after Su-yi was taken away, Si Mingli was itching to kill every member of the Su family as punishment for their futile attempts to rebel, leaving no one alive. Su-yi had definitely guessed he was framed by now. It doesn't affect only me, but my entire family and relatives won't be able to escape this calamity. Even if Master wakes up, he can't save me. So after hearing the old madam and Si Mingrong's words, Su-yi's pupils constricted. He knelt on the floor with one knee. His forehead was still bleeding with fresh blood flowing down his face. No matter how hard he tried to explain, nobody would believe him. No matter how he swore he was telling the truth, they would think he was putting on a show and being hypocritical. Even if he cut himself right there and then, they would think he committed suicide to escape punishment. I have no means of proving my innocence. It wasn't me. I didn't do it. I didn't betray my master. That man really was a mole I planted. Su-yi was instantly overwhelmed with despair. His eye sockets tore apart as he yelled, but he was simply met with pairs of cold eyes staring back at him. Si Mingli sneered. According to the family rules, we have to break both his legs first, then drag him into the prosecution hall. Two burly bodyguards with indifferent expressions, each holding a special rod in their hands, walked over to Su-yi as if they were afraid Su-yi would lose control and hurt people. One of the bodyguards instantly pressed Su-yi down to the floor. Yi Wanwan had a eureka moment. If she didn't remember wrong, Su-yi's legs were disabled at this very moment. Let me go. I was wronged. Su-yi shouted in despair. Bang! The bodyguard was annoyed as he threw non-stop punches at Su-yi to the point where Su-yi had no more strength to make a sound. Su-yi's face was covered in blood after taking several heavy punches. Those once wise and astute eyes were now dim without any light in them. I, Su-yi, have always been loyal and devoted towards the master. I've never had a tinge of disloyalty in me. I've treated the people in the Si family like my own brothers and sisters. But things have reached this point and nobody's willing to believe me. Since all of you want me dead, why should I even try to defend myself? Su-yi started laughing crazily like he accepted his fate. The other guard with the special, long rod raised his right arm, exerting all his force. A moment of complete silence filled the air and the long rod ruthlessly went straight for Su-yi's right leg. Master, Su-yi can't be by your side anymore? A bitter smile appeared on Su-yi's face as he closed both his eyes in despair. At this exact moment, a weak figure flashed towards him. Bang! The long rod with an all-powerful force stopped in midair all of a sudden, and the other end of the rod was held tightly by a little hand. Su-yi furrowed his brows and opened his eyes instinctively. As this was all too sudden, he was a little dazed. Although the girl in front of his eyes seemed a little weak, she was like a giant blocking his body, intercepting the rod that could break his right leg. The guard turned to Yi Wanwan. He was a little taken aback as well. This woman is really strong. The guard turned towards the elders. This woman was the mistress of the C family. At this moment, the mistress of the household actually stepped forward, so as a measly guard of the C family, he didn't dare to act rashly. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Who do you think you are? How dare you stand in the way of our family rules? Si Ming-li erupted instantly. Hearing that, Yi Wanwan was expressionless. She cast a cold sideways glance at Si Ming-li and spoke with a bone-chilling voice. Fourth great uncle, usually you're the elder and I should respect you, but today things are different. Who do you think you are that you actually dared to insult the future mistress of the Si family? Si Ming-li pointed at Yi Wanwan, speechless. Fourth great uncle, since you completely disrespected the mistress of the Si family, can I assume you disrespect the master of the Si family as well? Yi Wanwan replied coldly. Nonsense. Si Ming-li was shocked. This Yi Wanwan actually managed to launch this great accusation at him with just a few words. At this moment, everyone's attention instinctively turned to Yi Wanwan. Watching Yi Wanwan flaunting her power at such a time, the white-bearded elder, Si Ming-rong, frowned in displeasure. Si Ming-li restrained himself and said, "What I meant was that the elders are dealing with an important matter. How could we allow a woman like you to simply interrupt?" Yi Wanwan stood next to Su-yi as she replied indifferently, "Housekeeper Su isn't a traitor. I believe everything he said." Hearing this, Su-yi turned to Yi Wanwan in a daze. His entire face filled with astonishment. He never expected that the person who would stand up for him would actually be Yi Wanwan. Seeing as Yi Wanwan actually spoke up for a traitor and didn't seem to realize the gravity of the situation, all the elders looked displeased. Qin Ruo, she was amongst them, and the corners of her lips curled into a cold smirk. This woman is really darn stupid. She actually went against the entire Si family and wants to side with the traitor. I'd love to watch this show. I wonder how she's going to put an end to this. The rage and humiliation on Si Ming-li's face suddenly transformed into a smile. He looked at Yi Wanwan and said casually, "You believe what he said was the truth, what he said was genuine. With the evidence right here, you're helping a traitor. Are you dumb and ignorant, or do you have some evil intentions?" Si Ming-li changed the topic suddenly and continued, "Miss Wanwan has outstanding courage and insights. I admire you, but there's something I just can't figure out. For an organization like the Murderous Blood Gang, it's impossible for ordinary folks to know about them, much less the existence of an organization even stronger than them. For a young, sheltered lady like you, how would you know all these things? Attempting to fool the Murderous Blood Gang, I'm afraid that's not something you could do just by knowing about them. You have to be completely familiar with that organization before you can achieve that, right?" Si Ming-li spoke as his gaze turned towards Lu Ying and 11. The two of them looked at each other but didn't comment, which could be considered as tacit agreement. "Lu Ying, let me ask you, which organization did you guys disguise yourselves as?" Si Ming-li asked. Lu Ying paused for a moment before answering, "Rose of Death." What? Rose of Death. Hearing those three words, Rose of Death, all the elders had the same reaction at the same time. No wonder they were able to scare the Murderous Blood Gang away. "And how were all of you able to put on the disguise?" Si Ming-li asked again. 11 could only answer truthfully. At the time, Miss Wanwan already had some costumes and props prepared. Also, Miss Wanwan was quite knowledgeable about the Rose of Death. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Listening up to this point, Si Mingli nodded in satisfaction. So I'd like to ask Miss Yi, just how exactly were you able to have knowledge of those details that even the Si family's intelligence network was unable to fish out, and how were you able to predict the development of events that you were able to prepare the props needed? Is it possible that you were able to foresee the future, huh? At that moment, everyone's attention was completely focused on Yi Wanwan. They were too preoccupied trying to find the mastermind that none of them even questioned these details. Now that Si Mingli brought it up, the incident did seem quite fishy. This woman, she's not a traitor too, is she? Seems like she is. How could she have known so much about these people? There must be something wrong with this woman. Seeing that Yi Wanwan had been dragged into this for speaking up for him, Su Yi's heart raced, but he was unable to provide an explanation and didn't dare to speak up for her even more so. Now that I've already been deemed the traitor, if I speak up for Yi Wanwan, I wouldn't be helping her but harming her. Thus, he could only motion at Yi Wanwan with his eyes to get her to stop trying to protect him. However, Yi Wanwan didn't have the intention of abandoning him. She took a handkerchief out of her pocket and lightly pressed on Su Yi's forehead right before everyone's eyes. You should clean this up a little, housekeeper Su. Su Yi was stunned. The faces of all the elders present were extremely gloomy. This woman actually dares to treat a traitor so well right in front of us. We should have immediately punished her just now. Yi Wanwan didn't care about the fuming expressions of the elders around her. She turned to look at Si Mingli, who was looking at her as she courted death like he had all the winning cards in his hands. She said leisurely, "Fourth great uncle, you're joking. How could I possibly be able to foresee the future? Why should Si Mingli care about a little brat like Yi Wanwan?" He looked at her with disdain and said, "Then, since this is the case, Miss Yi, you must be the Rose of Death herself, or someone powerful from the Rose of Death gang." In response to what Si Mingli said, all the elders were horrified. "I don't have any relations with the Rose of Death," Yi Wanwan replied calmly. "With death at hand, you're still trying to deny it." Si Mingli sneered. "I think you're someone powerful from the Rose of Death. We must punish you today." As he spoke, he signaled the few guards in the area. After receiving his signal, a few bodyguards hurriedly stepped forward, ready to take down Yi Wanwan. "Just based on your assumptions, you want to punish the mistress of the Si family?" Yi Wanwan gave the guards side-eye. "I'll see who dares to do it." The guards looked at each other, not knowing what to do. That instant, Yi Wanwan turned to Si Mingli and sneered. "Fourth great uncle, if you're not trying to get the Si family into deep trouble, then you really must have some mental issues. I really can't imagine how a mentally challenged person could actually hold such a powerful position in the Si family." "What did you say?" Si Mingli's face contorted. Yi Wanwan laughed. "If I'm truly like what fourth great uncle guessed, the Rose of Death herself or someone powerful from the Rose of Death gang, then have you considered the consequences if the Si family punishes me?" Following what Yi Wanwan said, all the elders were stunned. The Rose of Death had a vast and mysterious influence. If the Si family provoked the Rose of Death, the consequences would be unimaginable. "Of course, I don't have any relations with the Rose of Death at all." Yi Wanwan continued and laughed. "If the Rose of Death wanted to mess with the Si family, they wouldn't have to go through all the trouble of planting a mole, right? Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Although the elders in the Si family were unhappy with what Yi Wanwan said, her words were indeed the truth. Right now, the Si family was no match for the Rose of Death. Si Mingli, who was some distance away, gritted his teeth. This woman. So is fourth great uncle brainless, or does he have other intentions, wishing for the Si family to be eternally damned? You said I'm brainless, how insolent. Si Mingli's eyes were filled with malice. Since fourth great uncle has a brain, it must mean you're harming the Si family on purpose, yeah? Yi Wanwan said without a change in expression. You. Si Mingli clenched his teeth. I'm not going to debate with you over this. Since you said Su Yi's innocent, you have to show us evidence. Otherwise, even the master can't save him. Evidence? Of course I have evidence. Yi Wanwan's eyes scanned across everyone present, then said, "Before Agio and the others left for the trip, I already knew the murderous blood gang would make a move on the C family." The second Yi Wanwan said that it caused an uproar at the scene. She knew about it? How did she know? If she's not with the enemy, how would she have known about their plans? Could it be that she's a spy from the murderous blood gang? How did you know? Si Mingli asked. "TSK, I need to see how this brat's going to explain herself. She actually dared to ruin my plan. I have to exterminate this brat who thinks so highly of herself today." Yi Wanwan replied matter-of-factly in front of everyone, "Obviously, someone told me about it." Someone told her about it? Everyone was doubtful until Yi Wanwan continued. "A week before the trip, someone suddenly came to see me and told me that Agio would be assassinated by members of the murderous blood gang during his trip to Country B and wanted me to stop Agio from going. That person also mentioned that if I was unable to stop him, I had to disguise as some Rose, an organization that the murderous blood gang feared. Everything I know about the murderous blood gang and the Rose of Death was provided by that person." Yi Wanwan paused. She glanced at Su-yi, then said, "At first, I didn't know who that person was till today when all of you brought up the so-called evidence of Su-yi having a connection with the murderous blood gang. I finally realized that the person who came to me with the insider information was the mole housekeeper Su planted in the murderous blood gang. That mole wasn't dead yet and even knew about the plans of the murderous blood gang, so he quickly came and reported it to me." After listening to what Yi Wanwan said, all the elders were dumbfounded. Things have taken a new turn. The truth's actually like that? Even Su-yi was stunned. It was just that Su-yi was very certain that the mole was already killed a long time ago. Yi Wanwan was just doing this to protect him. Si Mingli suddenly bellowed in anger amidst the silence. "Complete nonsense. Your story is full of holes." Yi Wanwan replied calmly, "I'm not sure which part of what I said had any problems, fourth great uncle. Please correct me." Si Mingli yelled, "What a joke. Even if the mole wanted to disclose insider information, why would he go to you instead of Su-yi? Who do you think you are?" Yi Wanwan looked at Si Mingli plainly. Her gaze held an inexplicable contempt as she replied, "That mole pretended to die and disappear obviously because the murderous blood gang found out and he was being closely monitored, so how could he possibly go to Su-yi or Luing? I'm the most unsuspecting person by Ninth Master's side, so naturally, he came to see me. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Si Mingli sneered and asked again, "Fine, let's just assume this explanation is right. Then you mentioned that the mole looked for you a week before the trip and even said the murderous blood gang wanted to assassinate the master. Since it was such a grave issue, why didn't you report it immediately and only spoke up now?" Yi Wanwan sighed and seemed somewhat disappointed. "Fourth great uncle, even a 3-year-old child knows that one shouldn't easily trust a stranger's words. Such a pity that fourth great uncle doesn't know this." Without waiting for Si Mingli to speak, Yi Wanwan said, "When that man appeared out of nowhere after he said those things, I never saw him again. How could I be sure whether he was a friend or foe? How could I be sure that he wasn't trying to sabotage the negotiations this time or simply used me to stop Agio? All I could do at the time was to keep reminding Agio of the dangers he might encounter during this trip to Country B so that he would step up his guard. But no matter whether what that person said was true or not, it's always better to be safe than sorry, so I prepared some disguises just in case. I didn't think we would really need them in the end. After we survived that dangerous incident, I was able to confirm that the person was a friend and not a foe, but I just didn't know who he was when I first met him. At first, I was planning to wait until Agio woke up before discussing this incident with him, but this happened and I realized that the person who tipped me off was definitely Su-yi's mole. What Yi Wanwan said was reasonable and she covered every doubtful point. All the elders muttered to themselves and pondered her words deeply. Seeing those reactions, it was obvious they found Yi Wanwan's words quite credible. Otherwise, there was no reason why a little brat like her would have such great predictive abilities. At this point, Si Mingli's face finally changed. He never expected that this little brat could ruin his trap with a few words and even trashed the situation he had planned for such a long time. That mole's already dead, so how could he have tipped her off? This woman's simply spouting nonsense. The old madam thought about it and also found that what Yi Wanwan said sounded reasonable. Since this is the case, no wonder you kept pestering little ninth to stay and even wanted to go along. Yi Wanwan nodded. Yes, Grandma. It's all thanks to housekeeper Sue for planting a mole in the murderous blood gang that we were able to get a tip on time and saved Agio's life. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. The old madam looked at the man who had his face covered in blood and was still in a half-kneeling position. She finally said, Sue, get up. Sue Yi was stunned for a couple of seconds before coming back to his senses and stood up mechanically. Yes. Si Ming Li's face was completely shrouded in darkness. His eyes shifted slightly, but at this moment, the old madam had already bought into what Yi Wanwan said, so he probably wouldn't be able to touch Sue Yi and the Sue family for some time. Housekeeper Sue, so that was what happened. This was indeed too coincidental, so you must be more careful in the future. Don't outsmart yourself, yeah? The corners of Si Ming Li's lips twitched. Sue Yi gave a sidelong glance at Si Ming Li and didn't respond. Qin Ruoxi's eyebrows furrowed. Her brows. She hadn't expected that Yi Wanwan would be able to cleverly stop the assassination. Thank you so much Miss Yi for proving my son's innocence, proving the Su family's innocence. The initially ashen-faced Su Changkun finally had some rosiness back in his cheeks. He was filled with gratitude as he turned to Yi Wanwan to thank her. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Uncle Su, don't mention it. I was just speaking the truth, Yi Wanwan said. Hee. Si Ming Li sneered, then raised some difficult questions suddenly. Yes, we wronged Su Yi, but there must be some problems with you. Who knows if you're a mole secretly planted in our Si family? You saved our master this time on purpose to gain the trust of the Si family and the master in order to reach your greatest goal. Of course, all these need to be decided by the prosecution hall. And you should make your way there for further investigation, then we'll all know what exactly is the truth. Prosecution hall? If I go into the prosecution hall, will I even be alive when I come out? Si Ming Li walked briskly towards the old madam and Si Ming Rong. Second brother, sister-in-law. This woman is very cunning. I suggest we investigate this clearly today. This issue relates to the entire Si family and if the future mistress of the household is a mole from the enemy. Si Ming Rong had always held the principle of killing 10,000 over letting one go, so his attitude was naturally inclined towards Si Ming Li's side. Si Ming Rong said, it's best to be prudent and have a thorough investigation. This is necessary. This matter is of great importance. The old madam frowned but didn't say anything. Si Ming Li observed the situation and didn't wait for the old madam to speak. He turned towards the door impatiently and yelled, Guards! Lock her up. A couple of highly trained guards nodded and walked towards Yi Wanwan. All of you. Su Yi was panicking. He wanted to say something at first, but when he thought of the awkward situation he was in, he could only keep mum, otherwise he might make the situation worse. Su Changkun had the same sentiment. He immediately shook his head at Su Yi, signaling for him to not make a sound. They could only come up with something after this family meeting. Yi Wanwan narrowed her eyes. Could it be that I have to die here today? Although she was very sure that she could prove Su Yi's innocence, she forgot that the gap between her status and Si Ming Li's was too large. In front of this formidable power, all the strategies were of no use. I'm too weak right now. The ruthless and cold bodyguards walked towards Yi Wanwan, their bulky hands grabbing her forcefully. Just at this moment, in the midst of the chaos, there was suddenly an extremely soft voice. That voice was very soft, yet it was like a gust of cold northern winds, freezing everyone instantly. All the noise suddenly disappeared. Everyone kept quiet like there was a sharp knife held against their throats. None of them dared to make a sound. Everyone turned towards the direction of the sound. Then, they saw that Si Han had actually woken up. The man was dressed in loose, thin pajamas. He supported himself with the door frame and stood there. His face was totally pale without any color, his steps were very unstable, his deep, cold and enigmatic eyes were shrouded in darkness. Fourth great uncle, I'm not sure when the C family became a place where you're the one who makes all the decisions? The man's hoarse voice resounded in everybody's ears. He was just a sickly weak man who could faint any time, yet everybody looked as though they had taken a glimpse of hell. They were terror-stricken and scared out of their wits. Especially for Si Ming Li, the arrogance he had just now was gone completely, his entire face filled with fear and his forehead was instantly covered in fine beads of sweat. He opened his mouth as if wanting to speak, yet he was so frightened that he couldn't get the words out. "Ninth Master? Ninth Master's awake." Everyone finally reacted to it one after another. Si Han's indifferent gaze didn't pause at anyone. It went past everybody and landed on Yi Wanwan. "Come here. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon." The man's hair was as dark as ink, his eyes were like ice, his red lips showed the only color on his pale face, and his white, sickly collarbones peeked out of his loose and thin pajamas. There was a gloomy aura encircling him. He looked so severely ill, yet it didn't affect his aura at all. Instead, it made everyone feel like they were in extreme danger. Yi Wanwan was dumbstruck and stood rooted to the ground. The Si Han who was in a coma for 3 entire months in my past life actually woke up at this moment? This ruthless and gloomy man before her eyes used to be the greatest nightmare of her life. She even cursed him to death several times. However, considering that he was standing upright in front of her despite how weak he was, seeing that he had finally regained consciousness, her eyes started to sting uncontrollably. At this moment, the man's flawless face was expressionless. When the girl walked up to him, a subtle trace of light finally flashed in his dark eyes. "Help me over." "Oh." Yi Wanwan came back to her senses and quickly helped him over to the sofa opposite. Seeing that her grandson had woken up, the old madam was very excited. "Little Ninth, you're up. But you're still sick. Why did you get out of bed? Hurry, go back and lie down." "Grandma, I'm fine," Si Han said. His gaze slowly turned to Si Ming Li, who was standing amongst the elders. Everybody had their heads down and nobody dared to breathe loudly. As the mastermind, Si Ming Li felt very guilty, and at this moment he was in a panic. The old madam felt somewhat uncomfortable and she worried that her grandson would be troubled by the turn of events, so she quickly explained, "Little Ninth, this wasn't anything big. We had some misunderstandings, but things have been cleared up now. There were some confusing points with this incident, so your fourth great uncle wanted Wanwan to cooperate with the investigation." "Cooperate with the investigation?" Si Han said plainly, but his voice was piercingly cold, causing people's bodies to tremble. Yes, that's right." Thus, Si Ming Li could only summon his courage, and he gave a detailed account of what happened from beginning till end. Then he bowed slightly like he was giving his heartfelt words of advice as he said, "Master, it was a slip of the tongue in a moment of anxiety just now and I didn't get the old madam's permission. However, I was so cautious only for the sake of the Si family." Initially, Si Ming Li's plan was flawless, but who knew that this dumb brat would ruin everything for him? He couldn't touch Sui now, but he wouldn't let this brat off. Otherwise, how was he going to resolve the hatred in his heart? Since she wanted to act as a heroine and save Sui, I'll let her be the scapegoat then. Si Ming Li's plan was well thought out, but he never expected that Si Han would gain consciousness at this moment. And at just the right time. If he woke up a second later, this woman would be dead. Now that Si Han was awake, things immediately became very difficult. When Si Han heard that, he nodded slightly. "Fourth great uncle, thank you. According to the family rules, one who makes decisions without authorization will have to be beaten 100 times with the rod. Considering fourth great uncle's old age, these 100 beatings will be borne by your son." What? Si Ming Li's face instantly changed when he heard that. Punishments weren't carried out by any ordinary servant, but they were all done by professionals from the prosecution hall. These 100 beatings by the rod would disable a person for sure. What family rules? They're all just words from his mouth and he really just wants to punish me. Han supported his head with one hand as he raised his deep eyes slightly. Fourth great uncle, you have an objection? Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Ming Li gritted his teeth. Master's decision is according to the family rules. I wouldn't dare to have any objections. Ming Li's face was gloomy and his cold eyes shot daggers at Yuanwen. This darn woman, she actually caused me to be in this state. Ming Li said sharply, Master, it's fine if you want to punish me, but my loyalty towards the Si family has been witnessed by heaven and earth. Even if you punish me, we still have to conduct a thorough check on this woman. At least I presented concrete evidence when I suspected Su Yi, but this woman is simply using her words. We can't rely on her words alone. Who knows whether that mole existed or not? What if she's from the murderous blood gang after all? She's the future mistress of the household. With such a status, if she turns out to be a spy from the murderous blood gang, the consequences would be unimaginable. Master, please look at the big picture. The moment Ming Li said those words, the elders looked at each other and started voicing their opinions softly. Actually, Ming Li's suspicions don't seem unreasonable. Ming Rong's face was stiff. He agreed to bring the woman in for investigation only for the sake of safety. When Su Yi and Su Changkuan witnessed this situation, they started to panic. This Ming Li, he's going to grab a hold of Miss Wanwan and refuse to let her off today. If Master insists on protecting Miss Wanwan today, Ming Li obviously can't do anything about it. But by doing so, it goes against everyone else and would also leave Miss Wanwan in danger still. Han's long and slender fingers lightly rapped against the handrest of the sofa. What fourth great uncle means is that Wanwan is a mole the murderous blood gang planted in the Si family and she saved me on purpose to gain my trust? Exactly. Since this woman's motive wasn't to assassinate the master, she must be doing it to get intel, and she can only get intel by gaining the trust of the master. Ming Li's tone was confident and he glared at Yi Wanwan with murderous intentions in his eyes. She's just a young brat, it should be a piece of cake to get rid of her. Wanwan. Han suddenly glanced at Yi Wanwan then said, Where's the stuff? Stuff? What stuff? When everyone heard that, they all turned to Yi Wanwan at the same time. Even Su Yi was confused. Yi Wanwan blinked, then obediently dug through her bag and managed to find a wrinkled stack of documents. Let fourth great uncle take a look, Han smiled faintly. Yi Wanwan then obediently brought the documents to Ming Li. Ming Li glanced at her then coldly took the files from her. The moment he saw the first page, his face darkened. When he flipped the page, his face became as dark as the bottom of a pot. Isn't this the highly classified information and draft contract for this project? Ming Li's face changed completely. Han actually placed such an important document with this woman for safekeeping. When everyone heard that, they all turned their heads to look and were shocked. What? Classified information of the energy project? Even the draft contract. This, Master's too trusting towards this woman. Just how much trust must you have to allow a person to keep such an important document? Considering the level of trust Han already had for this woman, why would she go through such an act to gain his trust? Wouldn't that be a joke? Han said plainly, Now, fourth great uncle, do you still have any problems? Ming Li gripped the documents tightly and almost fainted from a lack of breath. It was only after some time that he managed to cough out some words with a reddened face. No. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Su Yi stared at the documents and heaved a sigh of relief. He could finally put down the huge rock in his heart. Master not only gave the documents containing classified information to Miss Wanwan for safekeeping. On normal days, he wouldn't hide anything from her. Lu Ying, Qin Ruoxi, himself and many others from senior management could testify to this. If Miss Wanwan wanted to dish out any information, that would be very easy. Why would she go through all the trouble of pretending to save the master? Now, at least nobody would be suspicious of Miss Wanwan anymore. As expected, Si Ming Li and the rest of the elders were speechless. Although Si Ming Rong was somewhat upset at Si Yi Han for placing such important documents in the care of a woman, Yi Wanwan was currently the future mistress of the Si family, so Si Yi Han's actions were completely understandable and not a problem at all. Hence, he could only remain silent. At this moment, Qin Ruoxi, who was in the corner, saw those documents and her face turned pale. This classified information, even I haven't seen these documents before, yet Agio actually handed them to this woman. At first, she wasn't worried about Yi Wanwan at all. Considering Yi Wanwan's family background, talent, studies, and actions, marrying into the Si family was like a foolish person's dream, so why would she degrade herself to compete with someone like Yi Wanwan? However, after this trip to Country B, she didn't have a choice but to start to take note of this woman. How could this woman be so lucky? Of all people, the mole chose to speak to her and allowed her to take credit for saving so many people. She even saved Su Yi today, meaning Su Yi now owed her a great debt. When Si Ming Li was about to make things hard for her, Agio happened to wake up. The old madam loved her grandson and was worried Si Yi Han would overexert himself, so she quickly said, all right, now everything's clear. If there's nothing else, all of you should go back. We'll talk again when little 9H's health is better. It was the end of a good show. Everyone looked sympathetically at the Si Ming Li who had suffered great losses today, and they all took their leave. Yes, old madam. We'll get a move on then. Please take care of your health, master. As Si Yi Han had difficulty moving around, Yi Wanwan saw the elders out. At the door, Su Changkuan looked at the weak and delicate girl before him. His muddy and old eyes were overwhelmed with gratitude. If it wasn't for Miss Wanwan, I'm afraid the Su family would have been sentenced to eternal damnation. For Miss Wanwan's kindness today, I, Su Changkuan, will remember this for the rest of my life. Extermination and death weren't the worst part. The scariest thing was that the Su family had been so loyal and true for so many years, yet they would have had to bear the humiliation of being traitors for their entire lives. Su Changkuan took a deep bow towards the girl. Yi Wanwan quickly helped Su Changkuan up. Uncle Su, you're too kind. I was only speaking the truth just now. When Su Changkuan heard that, he shook his head and smiled bitterly. Under those circumstances, not a single person in the whole family spoke up for the Su family. None of them believed them, yet a young lady like Wanwan actually stepped forward to stop the bodyguard from beating Su. Just this point alone was remarkable. Yi Wanwan spoke and turned to Su Yi at the same time. Anyway, housekeeper Su has always taken care of me and I give him quite a bit of trouble. When Su Yi heard what Yi Wanwan said, he lowered his head, ashamed. She actually risked her life to save him just because of those trivial things he did in passing. If Master hadn't woken up on time, he wouldn't dare to imagine what the consequences would be. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Su Yi was certain the mole was already dead. He even saw his dead body and there was nobody living who could prove his innocence. Yi Wanwan only made up her story in order to save his life. So, Yi Wanwan also hadn't known whether he was wronged or not, yet she chose to believe him. If she hadn't stepped in at that moment, both his legs would have been disabled and the entire Su family would have been dragged into this with him. Su Yi stood there as straight as a stick. His gaze on Yi Wanwan became increasingly resolute and there was a distinct admiration deep in his eyes as he spoke, mouthing each word carefully. Miss Wanwan, you're the future mistress of the household, these are my responsibilities. Hearing Su Yi's reply, Yi Wanwan was quite taken aback. Su Yi sounds like he actually acknowledges my status. She didn't expect that because of this incident when she acted without thinking, Su Yi's attitude towards her would change completely. She was still alone in the Si family, so if she had someone like Su Yi on her side, that was obviously a good thing. Furthermore, Su Yi wasn't only the closest person to Si Yi Han, he represented the entire Su family. One must know that Su Yi's father, Su Changkuan, had been with the late master for over 30 years and had performed exceptionally. His prestige in the family was even higher than some of the blood relatives in the family. Not long after the elders left, Dr. Sun finally arrived. The old madam hurriedly got someone to bring him in. "Dr. Sun, please take a look at little ninth. He fainted all of a sudden and has just woken up." On the large gray bed, Si Han heard someone opening the door and he lifted his brows slightly. After seeing who it was, his face returned to its usual ice-cold expression. His gloomy eyes seemed somewhat irritated. "Where's Wanwan?" The old madam looked at her grandson, annoyed. At this point, he still didn't even care about his own health. The first thing that came to his mind was Wanwan. Didn't she just leave for a couple minutes? At this moment, there was the sound of footsteps, dang dang dang, as Yi Wanwan rushed upstairs after sending Su Chongquan and the others off. Seeing Yi Wanwan, the old madam heaved a sigh of relief. She's here. Now can you let Dr. Sun take a look at you?" "Si Han, come here." These words were obviously directed at Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan walked over to the bedside obediently. After Yi Wanwan walked over, the aura encircling Si Han seemed to relax and he closed his eyes immediately, allowing Sun Baichao and his disciple to perform all kinds of checks on his body. After a long time, "How'd it go, Dr. Sun?" The old madam grew anxious when she noticed that Sun Baichao's expression didn't seem too good. Yi Wanwan furrowed her brows and looked at Sun Baichao as well. In her previous life, Si Han was in a critical condition from his serious injuries. Would he be better this time? Si Baichao shook his head and let out a long sigh. "Ninth Master's health has already started to deteriorate. I'm afraid things are not optimistic." "Deteriorate? What does this mean?" The Buddha beads in the old madam's hand broke as she tugged on them emotionally. The beads rolled all over the floor. Sun Baichao's expression was heavy. I already mentioned this before, but his body is like a virtual frame. Everything looks fine on the surface, but inside, everything is in the red. Not only is his body incapable of nursing itself back to health, but his body is being overdrawn day by day. When even that last bit of foundation is used up, his hidden ailments will naturally explode. It's just a matter of time. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Sun Baichao shook his head and sighed heavily. His 5 organs are severely damaged. He might simply faint once in a while now, but in the future, his immune system will worsen and his body will get weaker. His organs will start to fail as well. How did this happen? The old madam's face turned increasingly pale as she listened. She said anxiously, "Dr. Sun, didn't you say little ninth would get better if he took care of his health?" Sun Baichao replied helplessly, "That's right, I did mention that before. The efficacy of ninth young master's medications are limited and we can only rely on them to help him slowly recuperate. Recuperating is easy for others, but for ninth young master, it's as difficult as ascending to the skies. His chronic illness is already in his body, and his insomnia not only makes it impossible for him to get enough rest, but it's like adding hail to the snow. This time, he didn't listen to my advice and overworked his body again, causing more damage and hastening his chronic illness. That fact that he was able to survive until now without collapsing far exceeds my expectations. According to my predictions, he should have already had the onset of disease a few months ago." The old madam forced herself to remain calm and her fingers trembled as she asked, "Dr. Sun, give me an accurate answer. Can we still save little ninth now? Just how serious is his illness now?" Sun Baichao glanced at Si Han somewhat apprehensively. After all, as a doctor, there were some things he shouldn't say in front of the patient. Si Han was expressionless from beginning till end. His cold expression looked as if they weren't talking about his health or maybe life and death didn't matter to him at all. Hearing this, Si Han replied plainly, "It's fine, Dr. Sunday. Please be direct." Sun Baichao knew this master's attitude, so he answered directly. "According to my conservative calculations, if this continues, ninth young master would have at most half a year left." "What, half a year?" Hearing what Sun Baichao said, the old madam suddenly blacked out and nearly fainted. Even Yi Wanwan by the side had a change of expression. He won't live past half a year? How could that be? In her previous life, Si Han was still alive when they got a divorce. Also, he wasn't severely injured this time, so his situation should have been much better than before. Why was his condition so serious? Just what exactly went wrong? Yi Wanwan tried her hardest to remember all the details in her past life, and after a long time, she finally understood the reason why. In her past life, Si Han did live a long time and didn't die, but in those few years, because his organs were failing, he went through several major operations. Si Han was the master of the Si family, the backbone of the entire family. In order to save him, the Si family naturally tried everything at all costs. Even if it meant changing all the organs in his body, they didn't hesitate to do it to extend his life. In her previous life, she wasn't as concerned about Si Han's condition and only knew he kept getting operations done. However, the word operation became such a common word that didn't have any meaning behind it. Furthermore, Si Han rarely showed his suffering and weak side to her, and he acted almost the same as an ordinary person. However, in reality, his health was probably already plagued with illnesses at that point, and he still had to undergo so many consecutive major operations. As his health was extremely weak, his organs deteriorated rapidly. Even after changing his organs and surviving the rejection response by a fluke, his new organs started to fail in 1 or 2 years' time and needed a change. Then he'd have to undergo another operation. She couldn't even handle the pain Si Han had to endure just by going through these memories in her head. Living through the repetitive and endless torture from operation after operation, he might have been better off dead. But the Si Han in her previous life forcefully dragged his life out for such a long time, even after being diagnosed with half a year left. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. The old madam walked over to Sun Bai Chao, extremely emotional. Half a year. How could he only have half a year left? Dr. Sun, is there really no other way? Please, I'm begging you, think of something else. No matter how much money you want or resources you need, I have the power to make decisions in this household. I can get it done for you. Sun Bai Chao shook his head. Old madam, I'm really sorry. Although I'm a medical expert, I'm of no use to Ninth Young Master. What he needs is to reinforce his vital essence and strengthen his primordial qi. This, along with the detox of the 5 organs, are only carried out during sleep. Even with the use of any nutritional food or supplements, the restoration of the 5 organs and 6 bowels all require ample rest. In plain words, sleep is a fundamental need for all human beings. If he can't even get the most basic thing right, all my treatments would be futile. The old madam immediately yelled towards the door, "Where's Emo Xian? Get Emo Xian here right now." Su Yi, who had been waiting at the door, walked in immediately. "Old madam, the master sent Emo Xian to take a break." "What did you say?" The old madam was shocked, then extremely furious. "Don't you people know how to talk him out of things when he's acting foolish, huh? Go find Emo Xian this instant." Faced with the fuming old madam, Su Yi could only rush to find Emo Xian. Yes. When Si Han heard he only had half a year left, he didn't even have the slightest wrinkle between his brows. "Grandma, I'm fine. It's my body, I know it best." The old madam's eyes were red. "What do you know? Your condition is already like this, yet you still say you know better." Outside the house, both overtly and covertly, there were many pairs of eyes watching him like a tiger watched its prey, eagerly awaiting his death. Right now, everyone thought he fainted from overexertion. If those people found out he only had 6 months to live, could they sit still? They would all try to swallow him whole. "Little Ninth, how could you be so willful and joke with your health? Why did you allow Emo Xian to take a break?" The old madam chided him. Si Han replied expressionlessly, "He's of no use even if he stays." The old madam was exasperated. "No matter how useless he is, he could at least make you feel a little better." Actually, the old madam knew that even if Emo Xian came back, considering her grandson's current condition, it would be useless. When she thought about how her grandson was left with 6 months to live and how she had to witness his death before her own, the old madam felt a deep grief as she sobbed silently. At this moment, Yi Wanwan snapped back to reality from her memories, and after some pondering, she turned to Sun Bai Chao and asked, "Old Dr. Sun, then, if he follows your recommendations strictly and recuperates starting from now, will he get better for sure?" Sun Bai Chao stroked his beard and looked like he was in a difficult position. If he's able to abstain from getting angry, quit being hot-tempered, stop tiring himself out and takes all his medications, acupuncture and moxibustion treatment, and most importantly, if he ensures a minimum of 8 hours of sleep daily. He's still young now, so there may be a chance of recovery, but I can't guarantee how much better he'll get. This depends on the individual. Sun Bai Chao shook his head after he was done talking. His words were simply assumptions, just empty words. Just how many could Si Han follow through with? If he really could follow all of them, his body wouldn't be in this state today. The old madam obviously knew this as well, so she was in a deep despair. After all said and done, don't tell me I'm still unable to keep little Ninth alive. If she had known, she wouldn't have allowed little Ninth to walk this path. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Yi Wanwan lowered her head and didn't mention to the old madam and Dr. Sun how she seemed to have the ability to help Si Han with his sleep. After all, there was too much uncertainty around the issue, and Dr. Sun's reply was also quite ambiguous. She had to give it a try before knowing if it worked or not. Sun Bai Chao prescribed some medications for Si Han once again, after which he sighed and left. The old madam looked like she had aged a few years in an instant as she sent Sun Bai Chao out with a broken heart. In a moment, there was only Yi Wanwan and Si Han left alone in the room. The house was completely silent, caged by a suppressive atmosphere. The man laid in bed silently. Even after hearing that he had 6 months left to live, there was still no change in his expression. Yi Wanwan opened her mouth several times, wanting to speak, yet she couldn't get anything out. At this moment, a cell phone started ringing, breaking the silence. Si Han picked up the phone by his side. His voice was as rational, calm and articulate as always. "Hello? Yes, that's me. How are you, Mr. Smith? Thanks for your concern, it's nothing serious. Of course, the negotiations will go on. All right then, in 3 days. Si Han was halfway through his conversation when his phone was suddenly knocked to the ground with a loud bang, producing beep 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 sounds indicating that the line was disconnected. Yi Wanwan had walked over and grabbed his wrist as she stared fiercely at the man in front of her. She gritted her teeth and spoke, making sure every word was heard loud and clear. Did you even fucking hear what Dr. Sun just said?" At the door, the old madam had just sent Sun Bai Chao off. Overhearing her grandson's call, she frowned and was about to say something when she saw that Yi Wanwan had already pounced over to her grandson like a little beast, so she couldn't help but stop in her tracks. Yi Wanwan stared at Si Han's frosty face. "You only have 6 months left to live. How could you act like nothing's happening? All this work, these projects, are they more important than your life? Do you even care about your health at all?" Si Han was silent for a few seconds, then he replied calmly, "I know my limits." Yi Wanwan chuckled angrily. "You know your limits? What limits do you have? Is your limit waiting for your body to weaken till all your organs start to fail, then you'll simply swap them out? Then when your body weakens further and your organs fail again, you'll drag your illness on and change your organs once again until your entire body is completely drained and hollowed out." Yi Wanwan took a deep breath to regain her composure. "Have you forgotten what your grandma said? Even if your entire family needs to be strong, your own life must be preserved too. Have you ever considered what would happen to grandma if you died? Are you prepared to let her watch you die?" Yi Wanwan paused for a long time before she continued slowly. "Even if you'd rather power through and die than allow yourself to be weak or make mistakes, even if you have many things you need to take care of, how are you going to do them when you're dead? Do you really not care about your life at all?" Si Han stared at her face. He slowly reached out for those eyes that seemed to be on fire from her anger. Yi Wanwan was taken aback. She quickly returned to her ANC, turned around and wiped her eyes. "See Yi Han, I don't want to be a widow." Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. At the door, the old madam was standing sideways. She moved aside and watched the girl run away in a hurry and felt a little moved. By this child? In the bedroom, the man was staring in the direction the girl had gone with a darkness in his eyes that couldn't be dispelled. Not care about my life? How could I not care? She's closer and closer to me, more and more real, like I could touch her. After Yi Wanwan ran out, she found a spot next to a little flower bed by herself and sulked. I'm really about to die of rage from that non-human. Who on earth would talk to his business partner over the phone, saying he would discuss the project in 3 days right after his vital energy was drained from overworking himself, surviving an assassination attempt and being diagnosed with only 6 months to live? Even if a person didn't want to live anymore, they wouldn't do this to themselves, right? If she'd known he didn't even care about his life, why would she go out of her way just to save him? Yi Wanwan felt as if she was a fool. Forget it. Let him do whatever he wants. If he doesn't cooperate and doesn't care about his own body, anything I do would be useless. Yi Wanwan was about to get up when she heard 2 people whispering. You bring it over. No, 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 you should be the one, you go. The previous time I went in, 9th young master was working. He merely looked up and I couldn't even walk anymore. Why is it me again? I already went once already. You know 9th young master hates Chinese medicine. I carried the medicine over and could feel 9th young master's murderous aura even from 10 meters away. What's worse is that if 9th young master does his work and forgets to take his medication on time, we'll be punished by old madam. Let her punish us then. I'm not afraid of old madam's punishment. 9th young master really is too scary. Before, when Xiao Zhang brought his medications in, he accidentally walked right into 9th young master waking up. I'm not sure whether 9th young master awoke from a nightmare or something, but he immediately took a gun out from his bedside and Xiao Zhang was so scared that he peed his pants. Then what should we do? I heard 9th young master fainted from exhaustion. His emotions are definitely even more unstable. Why don't we wait and see how it goes? I think we can just accept our punishments already. A sigh echoed from around the corner, then someone said, "Give it to me." Someone suddenly emerged from the flower bed, startling the 2 little maids so much that their souls nearly flew out. "You? Miss Yi? Why were you here?" The little maid was surprised. Yi Wanwan had been squatting under the flower bed. Her anger was already gone, but she ended up overhearing the 2 little maids whispering, pushing the responsibility onto each other. Finally, they were so afraid that they decided to delay giving the master his medication and preferred to receive punishment over delivering the medicine to him. The medicine had to be taken on time for it to be effective. How could it be delayed? Yi Wanwan said expressionlessly, I was cooling off in the shade. Aren't you girls going to deliver the medicine? Give it to me. I was about to look for 9th young master, so I'll bring it over to him. Really? The 2 maids suddenly let out a happy sigh of relief. The way they looked at Yi Wanwan was as if they were looking at the goddess of mercy who rescued people from their hardships. Thank you, Miss Yi. Thank you. Miss Yi, be careful, don't burn your hands. The 2 maids thanked her continuously, then carefully passed a small cup of Chinese medicine to Yi Wanwan. Yi Wanwan stared at the medicine in her hands and shut her eyes, annoyed. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Yi Wanwan stood by the door. She hesitated for a long time, but she was worried that if she delayed any longer, it would impact the effectiveness of the medicine, so she pushed the door open and went in. Behind Yi Wanwan, the 2 maids followed behind her as they were worried and peeped through the crack of the door. The 2 of them reconsidered it and felt that making Yi Wanwan deliver the medicine didn't seem right. This was their duty after all. How could they simply push it on to Miss Yi? If Miss Yi had any accidents while delivering the medicine, or if something happened, how could they bear this responsibility? On the huge gray bed, the pale man sat there like a rock, not moving at all. The wind blew in through the windows, lifting up a corner of his shirt and revealing a section of his thin, bony arms. In just a short month he became thinner due to his busy schedule. Yi Wanwan still had a stomachful of anger at first, but just seeing him face to face made her anger deflate like a needle puncturing a balloon. Because the pungent smell of the Chinese medicine permeated the room, the man's frozen brows furrowed all of a sudden and he turned to the door. "How dare you frown? This is something that could potentially save your life." Yi Wanwan walked briskly towards the bedside. Seeing that the person at the door was Yi Wanwan returning, a hint of surprise flashed in Si Han's unmoving eyes and his gaze followed her until she arrived at his side. At the door, the two maids watched Yi Wanwan walking towards Si Han. They were so tense that they swallowed hard, making goo-loo sounds. Ninth young master's gaze is really terrifying. Yi Wanwan acted like she hadn't noticed Si Han's furrowed brows. She removed the cap of the Chinese medicine she was holding. Suddenly, a waft of pungent Chinese medicine attacked her nostrils. It was so strong that Yi Wanwan started coughing violently, nearly puking. "Isn't this a little brutal, huh? This medicine is too horrifying. But he has to drink it. This is something that could save him. No matter how bitter it is, he just has to gulp it down and it's over. It's much better than having a sickly body, failing organs and having to go through surgeries to change his organs, right?" Hence, Yi Wanwan coughed lightly and continued on with a cold expression. She looked at him and said, "Take your medicine." At the door, the two maids witnessed this scene and their hearts went straight to their throats. They only hoped that Miss Yi had some special technique to persuade Ninth Master to take his medicine on time and that there wouldn't be any incidents. The two of them were preoccupied with their thoughts as they watched Ninth Young Master lifting his eyes, extending his arm and taking the cup of medicine from Yi Wanwan's hands. 3 minutes later, the bottom of the cup could be seen. The two maids blinked, looked at each other, looked at the emptied cup and couldn't believe what happened for a very long time. He finished it just like that? Miss Yi didn't even do anything. She simply stood there and said 3 words. "Take your medicine." That worked? After seeing that Si Han had obediently taken the medicine, Yi Wanwan's expression became much gentler. As she smelled the pungent smell of Chinese medicine in the air and watched him finish it in one gulp without a change in expression at all from beginning till end, she couldn't help but soften her heart. She asked, "Was it all right? Was it really nasty?" Hearing her question, Si Han glanced at her, stretched his arms, held her head, leaned forward and covered her lips with his. In that split second, the smell of the Chinese medicine mixed with his cool breath instantly saturated all her senses. Damn. After a few seconds, Yi Wanwan pushed him away and like a cat who had stepped on her own tail, she stumbled towards the teapot nearby and gulped down several cups of water. She was merely asking a question. She didn't really want to know how nasty it was, all right? Damn it, is this guy even human? Or does he not have any taste buds? He actually managed to drink all of that in one gulp? After Yi Wanwan drank a few cups of water, she gave Si Han one as well, obviously still annoyed. "For you." "No need." Si Han propped his head up slightly and spoke in a casual tone like he had just drunk a cup of tea. "Didn't you find it bitter?" Yi Wanwan asked in amazement. Si Han, "Not bitter at all." Yi Wanwan, "He's definitely not human." Author Jiong, "Ninth Master, you're a real man. Was it really not bitter at all?" Si Han, "With my wife's kisses, I don't taste any bitterness, / greater than over equal to less than over equal to, / Author Jiong, pretend like I didn't ask. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Not long after Yi Wanwan left after giving Si Han the medicine, the mobile phone in the bedroom started ringing once again. Si Han was motionless for a few seconds, then he answered the call. "Hello. I'm fine, the reception was bad just now." After listening to the person on the other end, Si Han continued, "Sorry, there's been a little accident." I'm afraid we have to delay the negotiation by a month. Yes. The C Corporation will take responsibility for any consequences and losses. Late at night, at a certain luxurious manor in Imperial City, it hurts. Hurts. It hurts so much. Gentler. Are you all trying to kill me? The man continued howling and wailing in pain. His shouts resounded through the manor as a group of servants trembled, not daring to even breathe loudly. In the bedroom, a man with soft skin and tender flesh laid in bed. His back was beaten so badly that his skin was torn and his flesh was exposed, completely drenched in blood. Doctor, how's my son's condition? Si Ming Li's face was gloomy as he asked anxiously. He had already bribed people in the prosecution hall, but they also didn't dare make the bribery too obvious and only restrained themselves for 2 to 3 degrees of their strength in dealing out their punishment. The doctor replied hesitantly, the wounds on young Master Ejie's back are all superficial wounds. They're not too bad and will heal in time. However, his bones in his right calf are damaged, I'm afraid. Afraid what? Si Ming Li glared. The doctor summoned his courage and replied, I'm afraid he will be disabled all his life. It will affect how he walks. What did you say? Disabled all his life. Si Ming Li slammed the table and stood up. Wouldn't that mean Ejie will become a cripple? That you slut. I must make sure she suffers a terrible death. Si Ming Li bellowed. What the hell do you mean? You quacked. What do you mean my leg is disabled? Does that mean I'll be a cripple? Si Ejie laid in bed and started yelling furiously. Young Master Ejie, don't move unnecessarily. We just stitched up your back. Please stop moving. The doctor quickly stopped him. All right, you're dismissed. Si Ming Li's face darkened. The doctor and the servants in the house retreated hurriedly. Dad, who's that slut? Was it Si Han's woman? I'll break both her legs. I must make her suffer a painful death. This bitch. Dad, how could you lose to a woman and even cause me to be in this state? When Si Ejie heard that his leg was disabled, he got so mad that he nearly went crazy as he rambled on and shouted. Enough. Why don't you shut your trap? Si Ming Li glared at his eldest son in anger. His eldest son had become a cripple because of a woman. How could he swallow this down? But even if he couldn't swallow it down, what could he do? After the assassination attempt failed, there were no more good opportunities like this. The Si family would definitely step up their security and investigate this incident thoroughly. To prevent themselves from being exposed, they would definitely be much more cautious with their actions for the next while. As long as Si Han remained in his seat, they wouldn't be able to touch a strand of hair on that woman's head. Si Ming Li's face darkened. At this moment, someone knocked on the door. Come in. Si Ming Li said with annoyance. One of Si Ming Li's trusted agents hurriedly pushed the door open and said to Si Ming Li excitedly, Master, I managed to find out an extremely shocking piece of news from the Si family old residence. It's regarding Si Han. Shocking news? What shocking news? Si Ming Li cast a sidelong glance. The agent took a few steps closer, lowered his voice and said excitedly, I got news from the spy that Si Han is suffering from a serious illness. He won't last 6 months. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Si Ming Li, who was infuriated over his son's leg, had an immediate change in expression when he heard what his agent said. He stood up instantly and said, What did you say? Si Han's suffering from a serious illness? And he won't last 6 months? Even Si Ejie on the bed stopped howling and used all his strength to turn his head. What? Si Han's dying soon? Really? Are you sure this isn't fake information? Si Ming Li stared at the agent. His expression turned serious and he asked in a deep voice, Si Han's been fine all along, why would he be so ill to the point of near death all of a sudden? Are you sure your information is true? The agent's tone was certain. Master, this is such a crucial piece of information. Would I dare to simply report it without verifying it several times? I gave lots of money to Dr. Sun's disciple in order to get this information. It's definitely true. Actually, Dr. Sun kept visiting the old residents all these years not for some routine checkup, but it was because Si Han has a serious illness and has been receiving treatment all this time. He didn't faint from overexertion during his trip to Country B either. It was because his sickness became more severe. Shortly after the elders left, Dr. Sun went to examine Si Han and determined that Si Han definitely wouldn't live more than 6 months. Listening to his trusted agent speak with such certainty and attention to detail, Si Mingli finally believed him. He paced around the house several times, then he suddenly froze like something came to his mind and he asked, "Is there no way to treat his illness?" The agent thought about it and replied, "Sun Baichao's disciple is quite timid. He didn't dare reveal too much and didn't go into details about Si Han's sickness, but since Dr. Sun has already given such a prognosis, there obviously isn't any medicine that can heal him. If Dr. Sun can't heal him, who can?" "You're right." Si Mingli nodded. "Ha ha, so Si Han's really dying soon?" Si Jie, who was howling just a minute ago, started laughing loudly. "Retribution. It's retribution. Dad, when Si Han's dead, don't forget to give that woman to me." A trace of lewdness flashed in Si Jie's eyes as he spoke. "I heard she's prettier than the #1 beauty in Imperial City, Lin Qing Ran. I'd like to see it for myself. Is she really that beautiful? When I'm done playing with her, I'll kill her." Si Mingli ignored his son. His mind was still swirling with the news. Ever since that guy, Si Han, became the master, he reformed and controlled the Si family like an iron bucket and caused them to lose so much dirty profits. Si Han wasn't even born yet when Si Mingli stirred up all kinds of trouble in the Si family, but now a young guy like him was riding on his head. If Si Han didn't have long to live, that was truly a great piece of news. Si Mingli continued probing his trusted agent to gain a deeper understanding of the situation. After that, he walked to the middle of the room and made a call. "Sir, I just got the news that Si Han has a deadly illness and won't live past 6 months. That's right, I've confirmed it. The information is accurate. So now, should we?" "You mean, we should hold back our troops and spread the news first?" "I understand. Sir, that's a good plan indeed. After we spread the news, we'll let other people start fighting first, then we'll reap the benefits. She's just a little brat who only knows how to use her looks. Sir, aren't you overthinking a little?" "I'll be careful." Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. After Sun Baichao's prognosis of Si Han's death in 6 months, the old madam started sending people to secretly scout for famous doctors. Even if she knew it was impossible to find a better doctor than Sun Baichao, she still held onto a glimmer of hope. At the old residence, in the little garden, Emo Xian was taken aback. How did it become so serious all of a sudden? Didn't you say that woman seemed to have the ability to get 9th Master to sleep better? Even though her presence was slightly more effective than your efforts, it wasn't enough to slow down the progression of 9th Master's illness. Anyway, recuperation takes time. Considering 9th Master's work habits and irregular hours, resting only a little then doubling the energy he exerts doesn't quite cut it, so what use could she have? Su Yi sighed and continued, 9th Master not only lacks a hypnotist, he also needs someone who can control him. Emo Xian laughed. Control 9th Master? That person has to be a Grandmaster of Beast Tamers? Huh? Su Yi, what the hell is a Beast Tamer? Su Yi and Emo Xian were conversing in the yard when they noticed 2 people walking over through the gaps in the leaves. They saw Yi Wanwan carrying a bundle of white things walking in front, while the little maid behind her also carried a bundle of the same items. It looked like blankets. Also, they had a bunch of bodyguards carrying a deck chair and a stool. A line of people majestically walked towards the little garden. Si Han was dressed in casual gray linen attire. He followed behind them leisurely. Yi Wanwan led the people to a shady spot and the first thing she did was tell Si Han, "Wait here first." After that, she pointed at the meadow covered with Adonis flowers and instructed the bodyguards, "Place the deck chair here and put the stool next to it." She lined the deck chair with a soft and comfortable mattress. After that was placed properly, Yi Wanwan put the pillow in her hands on top, then continued to instruct the two little maids, "Give me the blankets." "Yes, Miss Yi." The little maid brought the blanket over accordingly. Then Yi Wanwan placed the pillow on top. She extended her arms, patted the pillow, then turned around to look at Si Han, who was standing against the sunlight. "What are you standing there for? Come over." Si Han raised his brows slightly, then walked over obediently. "Sit down." Yi Wanwan patted the deck chair. Si Han sat on the chair. Yi Wanwan indicated her satisfaction and said, "That's right, now lie down." Si Han laid down. The deck chair was very long and wide, so Si Han's tall build wasn't restricted at all. After Si Han laid down properly, Yi Wanwan covered him with the blanket, then pulled out a stopwatch out of nowhere. "You shall take a nap starting right now. Ready, go." Si Han turned his head and looked at her. "I already slept last night." Yi Wanwan's face darkened. "I'm not stupid. You were pretending to sleep for 2 hours last night, and I don't even know what you were thinking about. You have to make up for it today. I even chose this spot for you to allow you to sleep happily and brighten your mood." Si Han didn't indicate any agreement or disagreement to what Yi Wanwan said, but instead, he glanced at the stool next to the deck chair. Yi Wanwan followed his line of sight and looked at the stool as well, then she glared at him with the ferociousness of a tiger. "What are you looking at? I'll be sitting here to monitor you." She plunked her butt down on the stool. "Close your eyes and sleep." This time, Si Han didn't close his eyes. Instead, he looked at her meaningfully for a couple seconds. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Yi Wanwan had goosebumps from the way he looked at her. "Why are you looking at me?" Of course, hoping for Si Han to say something like, "You're beautiful," was almost impossible. Si Han narrowed his eyes and asked, "Aren't you afraid of me anymore?" When Yi Wanwan heard that, she finally remembered who she was fearlessly speaking to. Her heart skipped a beat and she forced herself to remain calm as she stammered, What's there to be afraid of? You're just a paper tiger. It's not like you can eat me up." Si Han laughed deeply. "Want to try?" Yi Wanwan's face darkened. "Quit joking, sleep already." The air was filled with the crisp scent of vegetation. Beams of sunshine filtered through the gaps in the leaves, dancing on the girl's body and illuminating her cheek. One could practically see the lovely fine hairs on her body clearly. As she looked at him, all the gloominess and shackles on his back seemed to have melted at this moment. Si Han looked at her silently for a long time, but in the end, he still didn't ask that question. "But doesn't she want me dead?" With Yi Wanwan's urging, Si Han finally closed his eyes. A few minutes later, his fingers cupping his head slowly relaxed. Yi Wanwan carefully placed his hand down and covered it with the blanket. She then sat on the stool next to him, reading the script while glancing at him from time to time. Not far off, Su Yi and Emo Xian witnessed the entire process. Emo Xian gasped in amazement. Grand Master of Beast Tamers? Did you see that? She's the one. With Miss Ye's power now, all she needs is a whip in her hands." Su Yi coughed lightly and looked at him speechlessly. Emo Xian sighed. "Bro, what did you call me back for? I'm actually useless." Su Yi rolled his eyes at the bastard who was whining even when he was on a paid break. "Who says you're useless? I called you back to share some dog food with me, alright? I can't handle this alone." Emo Xian shrugged. "Alright, you won." The Grandmaster of Beast Tamers, Yi Wanwan, monitored Si Han closely for several days until her parents started asking her about her work and begging her to return home for a meal. Luo Chen hadn't seen her for a long time as well, so he gently reminded her about the audition in a few days' time. She didn't have a choice but to leave for a short while. Before she left, Yi Wanwan discreetly dragged Su Yi to a corner. "Hold this." Yi Wanwan pushed a little booklet into his hands. "Miss Wanwan, this is?" Su Yi was confused. "This is the day-to-day schedule I prepared for him. You're always by his side, so I need you to help me monitor him. If he doesn't do any of this on time, give me a call," Yi Wanwan said. Su Yi swallowed. Yi Wanwan, what? Su Yi said carefully, Miss Wanwan, are you asking me to be a tattletale? Cough cough. Yi Wanwan coughed lightly. Don't make it sound so horrible. What tattletale? I'm just asking you to be devoted to watching the master's performance. Don't worry, I'll back you up. Su Yi scowled miserably and held the schedule like it was a hot potato. You sure you can back me up? Of course I can back you up. Yi Wanwan slapped her chest and promised him. Su Yi looked distressed and was still scared to death. Seeing Su Yi so terrified, Yi Wanwan rolled her eyes. If I really can't back you up, I'll use my beauty trap, alright. Su Yi, alright, I'll definitely complete my mission. Yi Wanwan, liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Following that, Yi Wanwan brainwashed Su Yi for a long time. The main point was that she encouraged him to be a tattletale, and if Ninth Master went into a rage, she'd back Su Yi up. If she couldn't back him up, there was still the old madam. Lately, the old madam was aware she had been monitoring Si Han's recuperation and would definitely take her side. Maybe this is due to the joy and relaxation of being with someone he likes? The old madam observed that her grandson was indeed much more relaxed when he was with Wanwan. Also, she realized that her previous discovery was not a coincidence. Little Ninth seemed to really sleep better with Wanwan around. But she just wasn't sure how much these things that Wanwan was doing could change Si Han's condition. After all, according to Zhong Li's investigation, Wanwan had been together with Little Ninth for 2 years. During those 2 years, Little Ninth's condition didn't improve, so she really didn't dare get her hopes up. With Little Ninth's current situation, whether or not his health would improve. Even Dr. Sun determined that no medication could save him, so how could she pin her hopes on a girl? After Yi Wanwan left the old residence, the first thing she did was eat a meal at her parents' place. During dinner, her parents naturally brought up the topic of her boyfriend. With Si Han's current condition, Yi Wanwan could only say that her boyfriend was very busy with work and she would definitely bring him to meet them when she got a chance. After that, Yi Wanwan quickly drove to the office. Yi Wanwan returned to her office, turned on her computer and dealt with a few emails and some publicity from magazines and newspapers. She then headed to the training room to look for Luo Qin. The little sheep was pretty hardworking, he was dripping sweat in the training studio. He was well worth her efforts indeed. Although she established a very good starting point for Luo Qin, this didn't mean that there would be no problems at all. The competition this time was extremely intense. The competitors for the male lead and supporting role were almost all A-listers and above. Luo Chen's only advantage was that he was the original actor playing Lin Luo Chen. Although having the original cast was one of the most important factors for consideration, it was definitely not the only factor. The opinions of the sponsors, especially regarding the popularity of the artists, had a great impact as well. Luo Chen only had one greatest competitor this time, the actor chosen for the role of Lin Luo Chen in Yi Wanwan's previous life. Since being reborn, Luo Chen's fate changed, but Yi Wanwan couldn't be sure that this change would be enough to shake up the outcome of the casting from her previous life. In her previous life, the male lead for Terrifying Dragon 2 was still the original male lead, a popular young man under the Yi family's Emperor Sky Entertainment, Ling Xiaozhi. Ling Xiaozhi and Luo Chen started their careers at the same time and also gained popularity because of Terrifying Dragon. That time, although Luo Chen acted in a supporting role, his role was too popular, so he became even more popular than the male lead, Ling Xiaozhi. But today, Ling Xiaozhi was now a young man with some power at Emperor Sky Entertainment. His popularity was also comparable to Han Xianyu and Gong Su, and in everyone's eyes, Luo Chen had vanished. In her previous life, the supporting role of Terrifying Dragon 2 was a thorny problem. It wasn't because Ling Xiaozhi's acting skills were fantastic, nor was he the most popular artist among the other competitors, but he was the godson of a sponsor. And Luo Chen could only rely on his abilities. The kind of ability strong enough to crush money. Yi Wanwan already wasted quite a bit of time while accompanying Si Han to Country B. Now there were only 3 days left until the casting, so she had to quickly discuss the plan with Luo Qin. Yi Wanwan stopped her train of thought and called out to the youth in the training studio, "Luo Qin." Seeing the man at the door, the youth's eyes lit up. He wiped his sweat and quickly jogged over to the door. "Yi, liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon." "Brother Yi, you're back." Even though the little sheep tried to compose himself, he was unable to conceal the excitement in his eyes. With Luo Chen's insecure character, his imagination probably ran wild when Yi Wanwan left for so many days without any news. Yi Wanwan didn't waste any time. She said directly, "Pack up and get over to my place. I'll talk you through the plan." Luo Chen didn't hesitate. He nodded immediately and followed her. "Grandview Park. Sit anywhere you want." Yi Wanwan removed her coat, then poured a glass of water for him. Compared to the previous time he went to her place, Luo Chen was no longer as tense and was much calmer. Yi Wanwan sat on the sofa, ready to inspect his homework. Luo Chen stared at the script in Yi Wanwan's hands, looking a little nervous. Yi Wanwan was holding the script, yet she didn't look at it. She simply went ahead and chose a scene, Act 13, Scene 7. This was the scene where Lin Luochen killed someone. The plot was very simple. Lin Luochen killed a righteous martial artist with one blow of his sword, then turned around and left. There were no lines. This scene was solely based on facial expressions and body movements. Yi Wanwan mainly wanted to see how well Luochen understood the role of Lin Luochen in the second series through this act. "We'll look at this scene then. Do you have any problems?" Yi Wanwan raised her head and asked. Luochen shook his head. "No problem." Luochen walked to the middle of the living room, took a deep breath and closed his eyes. 3 minutes later, when he opened his eyes again, his gaze was filled with a cold, murderous intent. Luochen placed one hand on his back. He used the other to draw his sword and impaled the person's heart. His expression no longer had the innocence and purity of a teenager. It was evil, cold, and bloodthirsty. The way he stared at his opponent was as terrifying as a demon. After some time, Luochen recovered from his role. He turned to look at Yi Wanwan and looked somewhat nervous as he awaited Yi Wanwan's critique. Yi Wanwan rubbed her chin and pondered for a moment. "You acted well as the great devil." After speaking, she paused before continuing, "But it's a bit too superficial." Yi Wanwan got up and stood face to face with Luochen. Swish. She used the script as a sword and pierced Luochen's heart. Then she instantly pulled it out without wasting a second. Her eyes were just as Luochen interpreted. They were evil, cold, and bloodthirsty, but the difference was that there was no murderous intent. What replaced it was indifference, a kind of contempt and detachment that appeared to show an extreme lack of regard. It was as if the person standing before her wasn't a human but a thing that had no life. "Can you tell the difference?" Yi Wanwan asked. A cold sweat started forming on Luochen's forehead until Yi Wanwan asked a question that dispersed the immense pressure. Hearing what she said, he was a little shaken. He knew she had much greater deductive skills than him, but he didn't understand why. Why was it that she didn't have any murderous intent, yet she was able to make him feel so terrified? Yi Wanwan explained patiently. The Lin Luochen at that time had already gone through all kinds of injustice and torment. His temperament had undergone a drastic change. You displayed this point well. But what's the biggest difference between him and the old Lin Luochen? Do you know? Luochen lowered his gaze and thought for a moment before answering hesitantly, "Yes, the appreciation he had for life." Yi Wanwan revealed a smile. Luochen's perceptions weren't bad indeed. A hint was all he needed. That's right, it's the appreciation he had for life. If he considered people's lives, he would have a murderous intent, but if he viewed life like grass and dirt when he killed, there would only be indifference in his eyes. Luochen's eyes brightened up like he just gained enlightenment. "I get it." Yi Wanwan nodded and was about to speak. At this moment, her phone started ringing and the caller ID indicated that the incoming call was from Sue. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. A call from Sui? The Tattletale's report came so soon. Take some time to digest what I said. I need to take a call, Yi Wanwan said to Luo Qin. Luo Qin nodded, took the script and sat down on the sofa obediently. Hello, this is Yi Bai, Yi Wanwan said. When Su Yi on the other end heard a man's voice, he was startled for a moment before realizing that there was probably someone else present, so Yi Wanwan had to assume Yi Bai's identity. Cough, Miss Wanwan, the maid brought the medicine in, but 10 minutes have passed and Ninth Master hasn't taken it yet, Su Yi said responsibly. What's he doing? Yi Wanwan frowned. After you left, Ninth Master has been reading documents, Su Yi replied weakly. Ah. Yi Wanwan let out a sarcastic laugh and hung up immediately. Su Yi realized that she hung up and he instinctively swallowed his saliva. Why do I feel that Miss Wanwan's sarcastic laughter just now was a little terrifying? But Miss Wanwan is so far away. Does she really know how to get Master to obediently take his medicine? Luo Qin, who was in the living room, also subconsciously took a glance at his manager. He wasn't sure who he was speaking to over the phone just now, but his expression was even scarier than when he was acting before. After she ended the call with Su, Yi Wanwan put on her Bluetooth earpiece and called Si Han. It was a video call. After about 10 seconds, the other party answered. Is something the matter? Following the hoarse voice, a cold and charming face appeared on the screen at the same time. Yi Wanwan was dazzled by that face and almost forgot she was supposed to be angry. She quickly composed herself and regained her senses. Yi Wanwan tilted her head and smiled lazily. Nothing much. I was just a little bored, so I read your fortune for you. On the screen, Si Han stared at the girl's little face and raised his brows slightly. There was a bright smile on her face, but it was clearly laced with malice. It actually made the great devil feel guilty for the first time in his life. As expected, in the next second, the girl's expression changed. She smiled and said, I predict that you have a bowl of medicine next to your hand. It's been over 10 minutes and you haven't drunk it yet. When Si Han heard that, he glanced in the direction of the door. Su Yi, who was hiding there, became so frightened that he started trembling and in a moment of panic, he knocked against the door with a loud bang. Yi Wanwan spoke coldly, making sure to enunciate each word clearly. There's a fresh, young beauty 3 steps away from me right now. If you don't drink your medicine, I'll go over and pounce on him right now. Luo Qin, the little sheep who was 3 steps away from Yi Wanwan, the Si Han on the screen, Yi Wanwan's gaze didn't move at all, obviously warning him that if he didn't take the medicine, there really was nothing she wouldn't do. Finally, Si Han reached out and took the bowl of medicine. Yi Wanwan was satisfied only after seeing that Si Han had finished his medicine obediently. Go and take a half-hour break now before you keep working. No hanging up the phone, I want to watch you rest. She placed the phone on the side with the video call still turned on, ready to continue discussing the script with Luo Qin. The moment Yi Wanwan looked up, she noticed that Luo Qin was looking down and his ears seemed to be slightly red. It was only then she realized that, there really was a little beauty 3 steps away from her. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. Yi Wanwan coughed and hurriedly explained, Cough, it's my girlfriend. She doesn't want to take her medicine, so I had to resort to using a unique technique. Luo Qin nodded, indicating that he understood. Although he looked terrified, he could hear the care and concern in his voice. So it was his girlfriend who called. In the next few moments, a certain great devil was obviously unable to continue on with his work. Watching Yi Wanwan with a little beauty was enough to keep him busy. Housekeeper Su, who was still hiding at the door, gasped in amazement. Miss Wanwan was truly formidable. Not only did Master drink his medicine obediently, he even stopped working. Just how did she do that? As there were only 3 days left until the casting, Yi Wanwan made the most of all the time she had and talked through the script with Luo Qin for several hours. Once they were done, Yi Wanwan picked up her phone and got a shock when she looked at it. She realized that the video call was still in progress. You didn't hang up? Yi Wanwan asked with surprise. Si Han looked at her. That gaze seems somewhat resentful. But it was hard to blame him. His own girlfriend was with another man the whole afternoon, yet he could only see her through a video call. Yi Wanwan coaxed him gently, "Baby, be good. As long as you take care of your body and recover from your illness, you'll live a long life, and in the future, we'll be able to spend a long, long time together till our hair turns gray." Right, even though he knew she was simply saying this to make him happy and didn't really mean it, Si Han's expression still warmed up a little and he said plainly, "Are you coming back tonight?" Of course, of course. You're not feeling well. Don't keep moving around, I'll come find you. I gotta hang up now. I'll leave the house after I get changed." Yi Wanwan hung up, then changed into her female clothes. Before heading to the old residence, Yi Wanwan went to a dessert shop, intending to pick up some desserts and candied plums for Si Han. Although his expression didn't change whenever he took his medication, just the smell of the Chinese medicine was scary enough, not to mention drinking it. He could eat some candied plums after he drank his medicine each time. That should make things more tolerable. This dessert shop had good business, so there was a very long queue and Yi Wanwan waited for nearly half an hour before it was finally her turn. "Miss, how can I help you?" the shop assistant asked. Yi Wanwan wanted to mainly get their candied plums. This shop's self-manufactured candied plums were very popular and had very good reviews. So she looked at the remaining 3 jars and asked, "Is each person only allowed to buy 3 jars?" "Yes." "Give me all of these then," Yi Wanwan said. "Sure," the shop assistant said with a smile and started to pack them up for her. Yi Wanwan was about to start choosing some other things, but the moment she said, "Give me all of these," there seemed to be a gasp of astonishment coming from behind her. Yi Wanwan turned around instinctively and saw a young man standing behind her, clutching his chest like his heart was in great pain. The man was about 1.8 m tall. He wore a trendy, limited edition laser jacket, ripped jeans and had cherry blossom pink highlights in his golden hair. It was late at night, yet this person not only wore a thick mask, but he also wore a pair of huge sunglasses, hiding his entire face. According to Yi Wanwan's sharp intuition, someone who would cover himself up like that was probably a public figure. Maybe he's some superstar? Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. "Miss, your candied plums are all wrapped up. Would you like anything else?" the shop assistant asked. Yi Wanwan came back to her senses and added a strawberry cake and a mango mousse. "Thanks for coming, hope to see you again." The shop assistant bowed politely. Yi Wanwan gathered her things and left the store. But she felt that someone was following behind her, imitating her footsteps. Yi Wanwan turned around and realized that it was the masked man who had queued behind her in the shop. The moment she turned around, the man acted cool and pretended to stand by the side of the road with his hands in his pockets like he was waiting for his ride. Yi Wanwan strode off once again, and this time, the man didn't follow her. However, Yi Wanwan felt an extremely scorching gaze staring at her back. Yi Wanwan had no choice. She intuitively turned around a second time. In the end, she realized that, although this man wasn't following her anymore, he was still looking at her, and even with those big sunglasses covering his eyes, the sorrow and heartache in his eyes seemed to penetrate his sunglasses and land on her, strictly speaking, on the candied plums in her hands. Sensing Yi Wanwan's eyes on him, the man turned his head and pretended like he hadn't been looking at her. Yi Wanwan couldn't help but burst out into laughter. Must he do this for a few boxes of candied plums? However, if he really was a superstar, she understood how he felt. Artists had to restrict their diets and lose weight. It was a luxury to even be able to eat anything they liked. Yi Wanwan thought about it, and in the end, she took out a box from the bag and strode over to the man. When the man noticed her making her way towards him, he took a step back and looked like he was about to run for his life. Probably because he thinks I'm a fan of his and recognized him? Yi Wanwan stopped moving forward. She stood a step away from him and handed over the box of candied plums. "You wanted this? Sorry, I bought the last 3 boxes. You can have this one." The man stood there in a daze, not reacting to what just happened. "Take it." When Yi Wanwan continued to urge him, the man carefully extended his arms and quickly took the box of candied plums as if he was afraid she would change her mind. Yuanwan laughed uncontrollably. This is pretty sugary. If you're on a diet, you better eat these sparingly. She then turned around and left. The man cradled the box of candied plums and remained rooted to the ground in a daze. His head was filled with the image of the girl laughing uncontrollably just now. The smut is more beautiful than the candied plums. When the man finally returned to his senses, he quickly strode forward to chase after her but realized that the girl had disappeared into the night. Fuck! The man cursed softly in frustration. He took off his sunglasses and revealed an extremely beautiful face. At this moment, a pair of urgent footsteps came up next to him. A plump man ran towards him, panting and speaking quietly, "Gong Su. You little brat. Why were you here? You made me look for you. Did you buy desserts again? Binju repeatedly warned you not to eat this stuff." His assistant kept nagging at him, but Gong Su continued staring into the distance. The assistant asked suspiciously, what are you looking at?" Gong Su gripped the box of candied plums tightly and continued staring in the direction where the girl disappeared. He mumbled in a daze, "I feel like..." "Like what?" His assistant didn't understand. Gong Su, "I'm in love." Black lines filled the assistant's head in an instant. In love again? How could you fall in love just by buying a box of candied plums? And you can't even walk anymore. The man sent a kick over. Bastard. This time it's for real. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. The assistant was speechless and muttered, "When was it ever real? You caused an uproar in the tabloids the previous time and hid overseas for such a long time. Now that things have just settled down, don't you cause any more trouble." Gong Su waved him off in annoyance. I know. So annoying. Oh, right, is there any surveillance on this side of the road? Doubt it. What do you want to do? The assistant had his guard up. Gong Su's cherry blossom eyes twinkled. There was a little fairy who gave me this box of candied plums just now. Go find out who she is. The assistant nearly broke down in an instant. What? My little ancestor? Were you even listening to me at all? Brother Bin said you're not allowed to get close to any living females for now. You can't have any scandals. Please, I'm begging you, just stop for a few days, all right? Gong Su blew a strand of pink hair on his face and curled his lips. Don't find out then. Why were you so scared? When the assistant heard that, he heaved a sigh of relief but felt like something was wrong. Since when was this guy so obedient? Half an hour later. A Weibo post quickly gained popularity. Gong Su, who disappeared for a long time after his scandal with a female star caused an uproar a while ago, had finally reappeared. The moment he returned, he posted a very explosive Weibo post looking for someone. Gong Su. This evening at 8:16 p.m., at the entrance of Candy Dessert Shop, I fell into the river of love. Please help me find the little fairy who bought the last 3 boxes of candied plums. She gifted me a box of candied plums but has stolen my heart away. The attached image was a hand-drawn portrait by Gong Su. That abstract picture was truly indescribable. In just 10 short minutes, the comment section under Gong Su's Weibo post nearly exploded. Damn, what did I just read? Prince Charming actually fell in love with a passerby at first sight and even made a public confession? Why have I been abandoned again? He fell into the river of love again? How many times has it been? It hasn't even been 2 months since his scandal with Cheng Man and I, right? Everyone knows Gong Su only looks at appearances. All his ex-girlfriends were extreme beauties and this time, he actually fell in love with a passerby. How pretty could that chick be? Gifted him a box of candied plums? Could she be a fan? Which fan would be this lucky hut? That doesn't make sense. If she was a fan, she should have gifted him all 3 boxes. I guess she's really a passerby. Also, Gong Su wouldn't leave the house without covering his face, right? Am I the only one who's focusing on the fact that hubby actually sneaked out at night to buy desserts? Other than the teasing from his fans, his haters also flooded the comment section with insults such as playboy, jerk, and womanizer. Also, The fans of those girlfriends who previously appeared in scandals with Gong Su cursed him too. The entire comment section was exceptionally lively. In addition, some close pals of Gong Su who didn't find the incident big enough started to fan the flames by reposting. Very soon, his Weibo post reached the top of the popularity board. In a moment, the popular searches list was filled with searches like Gong Su encounters beauty at dessert shop, Gong Su's public confession, and Gong Su's love at first sight. At a certain villa in Imperial City. Zhou Wenbin stared at that Weibo post gaining more and more popularity by the second, and he poured out a torrent of abuse at his assistant. Moron. I told you over and over to keep an eye on him. Is this the way you work? He just came back and caused such a big problem. I did try to stop him, but it was no use. I didn't think he would secretly post this on Weibo after he promised to behave. The assistant cried. Didn't I ask you to take over his Weibo to keep his hands off of it? Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. With Lord Gong's temper, I really don't have the guts. The assistant mumbled timidly. Useless. Zhou Wenbin was so angry that he paced around the house. The assistant lowered his head and complained in his heart. All you do is scold me. Why don't you try scolding Gong Su? In his bedroom, Gong Su was lying on the couch, chatting idly with some close pals on WeChat. Gong Su, brothers, remember to repost it for me. I must find that chick. Zhao Mingzhe, already done, Suji. And Yu Feng, exactly what kind of beauty was she that she could hook Lord Gong's soul away with just a box of candied plums? Gong Su, as beautiful as a fairy. And Yu Feng, bullshit, could she be prettier than Qingman and I, huh? Gong Su, they're on totally different levels. My bare-faced little candied plum was enough to make my soul fly. Mo Fei, make your soul fly. What did your language teacher teach you, huh? Gong Su, anyway, you know what I mean. My little candied plum isn't only beautiful, but her smile is even sweeter than a candied plum. I think I'm really moved this time. The second she smiled at me, my heart pounded faster than the first time I had sex. Everyone in the WeChat group was speechless. Tang Xinghua, what a load of C****, Gong Su. I thought after being scolded so badly that you would stop. In the end, you started a great battle the moment you're back. Only you have the guts to fool around like that in the entertainment industry. Gong Su, I'm anxious too, okay? If I can't continue in showbiz, I'll head home and inherit the 10 billion family inheritance. Tang Xinghua, Mo Fei, and Yu Feng, bros, let's beat him to death. The group of stars gossiped in the group chat, and Han Xianyu, who rarely commented, emerged and said something. Han Xianyu, candy dessert shop? That's just below the apartment I live in. So you're the one who did this. Gong Su, that shop is right under your apartment? Then have you met that chick before? Gong Su sent over his hand-drawn portrait. He even sent a voice message to Han Xianyu saying, very pretty and angelic. If you ever see her around, you will definitely have a similar impression. The corners of Han Xianyu's lips twitched as he looked at the portrait drawn by a kindergarten child. Then he sent a voice message over. Sorry, I've never seen her before. Knock, knock, knock. Someone knocked on Gong Su's door, interrupting his exciting conversation. Cough, Gong Su, are you busy? Zhou Wenbin asked politely, a sharp contrast to his attitude towards the assistant. What? Need something? Gong Su was obviously in a bad mood since he couldn't find his little candied plum. Gong Su, if you want to eat some desserts, you could get your assistant to buy them for you. Why did you take the risk yourself? What if someone with bad intentions finds out your identity and uses some tricks to try to get close to you? Zhou Wenbin guided him systematically and patiently. Gong Su rolled his eyes. If little candied plum really wanted to get close to me on purpose, I would smile even in my dreams. Zhou Wenbin choked and was speechless for a moment before he said, Hee hee, it hasn't even been an hour and the post is already trending and in the headlines. It means you're still very popular. But if you have too many scandals, it's not good for your reputation. Besides, you just broke up with Cheng Man and I. Just her fans alone were difficult to handle. Zhou Wenbin sang praises and flattered him before reaching his main point. So, you see, shouldn't you take down this Weibo post? A saying which means, frightened out of one's wits. Liked it? Take a second to support novels on Patreon. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.